Thank you so much, Laura. Indeed, welcome to the LCS post-game lobby. Broxah is just getting hooked up with his in-ear and his mic so you guys can hear him. He'll be joining us in just a second, but I am Sjokz here with Vedius and Ender so far. And let me just say, we were watching this game together. Wow, one of the best games I've watched in the last couple of weeks in the LCS, I would say, and I don't think that's doing it disservice to anyone, because that was hype.
Hey, Broxah UOL was also great today, but this one, it was very tense. We thought like, oh, Splice in the late game.
Sorry
this is their forte. This is the area where they always find great fights, and they did. They found so many good fights. Wukong was so difficult to execute and pull off in the late game, and Splice did a good job of shutting it down.
Kabe was so strong.
Yeah, that's the thing. Every single fight came down to whether or not Kabe lived or died. When he lived, he could take over it completely, but when Caps found the assassination onto him, when he didn't have a GA, there was just nothing he could do.
Yeah, spin to win, man. Spin to win. He was able to pull it off in the end.
I mean, and Broxah will be joining us in a second, but stealing that Elder Drake, or
that was
just
huge.
Taking it, I would say. I guess it wasn't really a 50-50, but still was so important. Man, yeah, great game. I was really surprised. I didn't think Splice would make it such a competitive one. I think this bodes well for them looking forward, even though they are going to be crushed, I think.
Well, they still secured a spot in playoffs, and given that they are kind of quite far behind the other teams competing for first place, I think a win here would have done them a lot of favors in terms of moving up in terms of seeding, but they still have 2 games left. It's still relatively easy compared to many other of the top teams that still have a couple games left, so they can still make their way up into the standings and avoid that 6-speed spot.
And I think they keep proving to us that they can be absolutely competitive with the teams all the way at the top of the standings. They beat Fnatic the last time these two teams played. They've been consistent challengers to those top teams. So when playoffs roll around, even though they're very likely going to be in the 6th spot, they're definitely going to have some upset potential there.
Yeah, I do see Broxah. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask him on already. I guess I am. Broxah, you can join us.
Get over here.
Get over here. Hello.
Hello.
So I have a very quick question. Very quick. That game was like 50-55 minutes, right?
Yes.
How do you not die in that length of time?
I actually thought about it myself as well. I looked at the scoreboard and I see everyone with like 5+ deaths.
Yeah.
I have 0 somehow. I actually don't know what happened.
It was so impressive, right? The fact that not only you got that Elder Dragon still in the end, you didn't die, you set up so many plays. I thought you had a fantastic game, but it felt like it was a really hard game to win.
Yeah, well, what made it so difficult?
I'm not even sure, actually. It just felt like once we had the lead, like we were actually really far ahead early on, but we just couldn't close it out, and we didn't have the best comp to do Baron either. Like our Baron was relatively slow, so every time we actually tried to do it, they just managed to get there in time, and then we were too scared to actually 50-50 it, right, because we were ahead. And yeah, I think they just made a small amount of mistakes after they started falling behind, and we couldn't really find a way to actually crack the inhibs or close the game out.
Yeah, that made it so exciting, knowing that Kabe, if Kabe was left alone, he would have killed all of you, right? So it was tricky. How was it from a heartbeat perspective? Because for all the viewers, I guess, at home in the studio and us, we were all like, whoa, this is insane. How was it for you?
Well, it was really, really exciting and really scary as well, because we were so far off, and then all of a sudden there's actually a chance of us losing. And especially at the second Elder Drake, when they started Elder Drake, I started having flashbacks to the Flash Ghost games. Okay, I need to step up here or it's doomed.
Yeah.
But luckily we got the Elder, so it worked out.
You did. You got the Elder, indeed. Player of the game, Caps, 59% of the votes. Yeah, I mean, Hylissang in the early to mid-game was insane, but I guess in the end it was Caps that, you know, had the team fight prowess.
He also picked Wukong, so like the fans are just gonna love that.
It's just
and
a fan favorite.
I mean, in that last fight too, finding that flank was really what felt like it won the game. That's him after finding out he got player of the game.
He looks so angry. What?
I don't want to know what he's actually yelling. It doesn't look like it may be that savory. Or actually,
I love monkeys!
I love it!
I love at the end too, he's like, oh yeah, calm down, guys. Calm down. He was the one doing everything.
Crazy. Let's take a look at the standings. The playoff teams are now all officially decided. This unfortunately means that Rocket, Giants, HUK, Unicorns of Love are all out. But to the postseason, or in the postseason, we will see these 6 teams. And for you guys, Broxah, for Fnatic, it's all about first place and second place. We know that the bye is very important, but do you also care about the fact that you hold that sovereign first place? Or does that not matter that much to you?
Well, for me personally, it's kind of mixed. Obviously, I would like to secure the first place, But in reality, I don't think being first place necessarily gives you more than second place. I think you just need to be top 2, right? Because then you skip the quarterfinal. And I think that's what it really comes down to in the end. First place could give a small edge, but with how top 6 is looking right now, like everyone's beating everyone, right? So like having that first seed and getting a potentially weaker enemy in the semifinals might not even be a reality anyways.
Yeah.
And what I'm most excited about is everyone now has 2 games left. Fnatic are on track to potentially get the same score that they had in spring. And the fact that Splice are in a position to challenge Vitality for that 5th seed, but they cannot contest for top 4, which means that ideally they want to hope that Vitality lose both their games, which could be challenging, but if they're able to do it, I don't know what the head-to-head record is between those 2 teams, but it does mean that basically those 2 teams do not want to have to result in a potential Fnatic semifinal.
Yeah, I guess the kicker here is nobody wants to face you guys at all. But favorably, like in the finals, would be the best bet for everyone. Do you also feel like you're head and shoulders the big favorite?
I think we are a favorite right now, but at the same time, I mean, I'm confident going into a best of 5, right? But I think there's a lot of teams that are kind of not really wildcards, but that can look scary. Like, for example, right now I feel like I have no idea what to expect from teams like Schalke and Vitality. Like, going up against them could either be really good for us or really bad, because you just don't know what's coming, right? And one week they look amazing, and one week they look really horrible.
You think that about Schalke as well, because they're on 8-1 streak?
I think Schalke has gone upwards a lot, but I think stylistically we match up pretty well against them. But I mean, Vitality especially, it's so hard to say what's coming, right?
A discussion point for us before the game, we're talking to Perkz and asked, who has the best macro, and he said, well, it's very hard to say how good Fnatic's macro is because generally they just run over people so fast or they're so strong in the early game. Do you think that might be a liability that you haven't tested that much if you go into a best of 5?
I don't really think so, because like I think it's actually easier to practice macro if you get ahead early game rather than if you fall behind. Because if you're falling behind, then you're just trying to get whatever you can and not fall too far behind in the game. But if you're ahead, then you have to play good macro. Like for example, this game, like our macro could probably been better because there should have been a way we could close the game out, right? But like generally being ahead early, you do need good macro to actually close the game out. So I think more than anything, we get a lot of macro practice by being a good early game team as well.
Okay.
So follow-up question, though. You guys aren't used to playing from behind. If macro is harder when you're behind, do you need practice there?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's harder. But, it's just different, right? Because when you're behind, you just try to get whatever you can and try to scrape in all the farm that you can. But when you're ahead, you actually need to not make any mistakes. And it's just like a different perspective kind of thing, I feel like.
To me, the thing about Fnatic is that they've always shown the key difference between them and Vitality is while both teams have often been good at getting early game leads, Vitality have often been quite linear in what they then do following up, group and fight. Fnatic have not. They've shown that they can play multiple side lanes, they can play 1-3-1, they can play team fight, their Baron setup is pretty good. They demonstrated on multiple occasions that they have a number of options at their disposal, and when they are behind, I feel like Broxah is being a little humble because to me what is impressive is Hylissang specifically, because this guy has zero fear. He's always looking to make plays, and if they ever fall at a deficit, I feel like he's the kind of player that will find you that advantage and avenue back into the game. So having that star power, not only on Hylissang, but kind of across the board, is something that Fnatic kind of has above many of the other teams in Europe.
Yeah.
And even if you're taking Hylissang in this most recent match, he's on Pike. When Fnatic get the Baron, he goes into a side lane to split push because no one can actually catch him in a side lane. If he just is there with 3 cannon minions that are baroned up, they're going to be getting turrets. So it's not just him looking for picks with a hook, it's him actually going into different lanes and taking the reins himself.
A joy to watch. To wrap up this standings discussion, Broxah, I asked Perkz the same question. Who do you think is your biggest threat if you look all the way to finals in this top 6?
That's the thing, right? I mean, it's so hard to say which team is actually going to be toughest to go up against right now, I think. We probably would do pretty well against G2 and Misfits. But, I mean, Schalke, I think we would do well against too, but Vitality right now is just,
A wild card?
as I mentioned, kind of a wild card. You really don't know what's coming, and therefore I would be most afraid of them, I think.
Is it because of Kikis?
It's not because of Kikis. I would love to play Kikis in some more games, but yeah, like they've just changed so much the last weeks, and well, generally they're a really, really good early game team as well. So, yeah.
Maybe your wish will come true if they get 6 and then you guys win or go to the semifinals. Who knows?
Lots to look forward to.
Lots to look forward to, indeed, and we're going to look forward a bit more towards the regular season MVP. We're going to start the discussion. We're going to start looking at candidates. So I asked you guys to think about who is in the running for you guys. No, I'm not going to say top 3 specifically, but 3 guys you're looking at. And Ender, we are going to start with yours in a second. And I think you have one, a bit of a shocking one, and then 2 that are expect. Let me start with the most expected one. Caps, I don't think anyone can argue that he should be in the running for MVP, Broxah. Do you agree?
Yeah, obviously I think Caps is an amazing player, and yeah, I think he has looked really, really good to Split, and us kind of stepping it up as a team, and me and Caps being a better duo has made him look really, really amazing. Like he has just smacked everyone.
A bit of self, perhaps.
Caps definitely gets assistance from the rest of the team, but there's a reason why you put a lot of resources into him. He's a guy that will just go ahead and solo carry you games on picks like Wukong.
Yeah, there's a reason we have decided to put more focus on Caps to Split rather than in the past where it was a bit mixed, generally on Reckless, but now Caps gets the attention and he's really showing up and making it worth it.
It's been working really well. Mickey X, so of course benched this week. Jess has subbed himself a bit in. And I mean, let's first talk about how it was with Misfits and Jess's this week. It wasn't bad, but it also wasn't better than before.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Misfits in their prime, it's all about their bottom lane. And Hansama, great player. He was actually in the running for him. I was basically between Hansama and Mickey X for this spot. And I was thinking, how do they actually get these kills in the bottom lane? Mickey X always finding the engagements. When he's playing Morgana, he's actually like smurfing or scripting. I don't know. He lands every single binding. It's insane. And then he also is so good when it comes to engagements for the team and forcing plays on picks like Rakan. You remember all those highlight reels. It was really impressive stuff out of him, and I don't think the issues with Misfits in the past few weeks stem from his lack of ability to find that same form. I think he's still playing very well, and
let me
is
jump
definitely in the conversation.
The reason they decided for bringing in Jesses is not the mechanical ability, it is the shot calling. Now, my question is, if you sit with Mickey X, and we heard in the beginning of the split that he needed to be more communicative and he needed to be better at shot calling, or he was working on that, right? He said that himself. But if you can't get him to be better by watching your own replays and watching what else he's playing, how the hell is he going to get better if he's not even playing so short before playoffs? That kind of puzzles me. I don't know if you guys have similar thoughts.
Well, the hope would be that by having him off the bench, the whole team has a shift in perspective. I would imagine that as someone who's played with a sub, the environment naturally changes, right? When you have a different voice, different communication comes about. And while I will definitely admit that Mickey's mechanical prowess is much higher than that of Jez's, you would hope that bringing in Jez's would just change discussion points. When you get to the mid or late game, different people are bringing up different topics, and perhaps that's the goal or intent. And given that they were a pretty confident lock-in for playoffs, they just wanted to try a change in their communication style. And having him off the bench just maybe changes things for the team and how they speak, because before this, they were not getting better. I believe this team is now like 0-4 over the last 2 weeks, and so something had to happen.
They won yesterday. I mean, it is fair. I think that's a fair point of how to improve. What do you think, Broxah?
I think another point is that if they ever want to actually put in Jesse or even have the chance of putting him in playoffs, they have to give him a few games before, right? Sure. Like, for example, for us with Reckless, like if we were to put him in again, we would have to do it now, right? Because otherwise he hasn't played for weeks and we can't just randomly put him in a semi-final when he's kind of rusty on stage. And yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to put Jesse in now, so at least you have the option in playoffs. I can't really say from an outside perspective if he's going to do more than Mickey or not, but now giving him some games, at least they have the option of putting him in a best of 5.
Well, I didn't even know he was meant to ever, like, I thought that he was in the sub position, but it was one of those, he's in that because there's no one else in there in case like someone gets ill, and he's like an analyst. He is the assistant coach, right? So I didn't know. So I was a bit surprised, but I may be wrong in that as well. And obviously we trust the coaching staff. It'll be better in the long run. And we'll see in playoffs, you know, if it pays out, great for them. I do want to know about your final pick. Perkz, there's nothing you can really say against that, but I think some people will
I have a bunch of stuff I can say against that. Wow. So I think Perkz is a great player. I think highly of his ability to lane. I think he matches up very well against many of the mids in the European LCS. But over the last few weeks, G2 is now 4-5, right? They have not looked good in the second half of the split. And I'm not saying that is a fault of Perkz, but what has he done to be exceptional for the team? I do not think that he has stood out or have been of extra value to suddenly make him suddenly the MVP of the split.
Now, Vedius, he is statistically, the eye test, everything marks it off. He's the best laning mid laner in the ULCS. He actually has insane CS leads.
Great.
The damage he deals, it's all fantastic.
Wonderful.
Perkz is synonymous with G2.
Yeah.
At the start of the split, we're not looking at just the last
He makes all good points. I
We're
agree.
not just
I agree.
looking at the
No,
last
you're
few
right.
weeks. We're looking at
You're
the
right.
whole split. At the start of it, it was all about funnel. They were
Yep.
putting all the resource into him. He was carrying the games for his team. And now, even though they are struggling, I don't think you can replace him with anyone else and still see a G2 that's in the top 5. I honestly don't think you can.
Well, in terms of most valuable player, that would definitely fit the bill. Broxah, what do you think?
I think in reality, thinking of MVP votes in general, it's so hard from an outside perspective to say who's the most valuable player on each team, right? Like, for example, for Misfits, I could come up with anyone, right? I have no idea which one of them is actually the most important to the team. Maybe in the past you would think Maxlaw, but now if they actually have to put in Jesse for the shot calling perspective, whereas they used to say Maxlaw was the leader, then maybe he's not the MVP. Maybe it should be Mickey X or Hansama then.
But do you disagree as much as Vedius with putting Perkz even on the list for top 3?
I think it's a tricky one. I think you could argue for it being, if you want to pick someone from G2, it would probably go to either Perkz or Wonder, I would say.
Agreed.
But at the same time, we have no idea what their communication is like. We have no clue how their team functions on the inside. We can only see how it is on the outside, right? And in my opinion, it can go to either Perkz or Wonder. Like, you can argue for both.
Okay, I think that's fair. It'll be a hard choice. We will all be picking our MVPs and the teams as well, so you can think about that one. But now, I do want to see Vedius' list and who he has picked instead, or maybe, probably, I think Caps is going to overlap, yeah. Nukeduck for Schalke and Hylissang for Fnatic. Boom! 2 Fnatic players. Hilly, got to just jump on that. We just praised him in the game, but I think he flies under the radar. He's an unsung hero, but he's been a monster this split.
So when I was thinking about MVP, I think of if you remove that player from this team, how much would they be affected by it? And, you talked about Perkz. Yes, if you removed him, that G2 becomes very different. But I think Hylissang has been so instrumental and valuable in Fnatic's success in so many ways. No longer is he a coin flip player. He is way more consistent than he's ever been in his pro career. He's played with 2 different carries in the bot lane. One was a top laner. And he's just been able to shift his style from not only being extremely strong in 2 versus 2 in lane, but also being able to set up his mid laner and work with his jungler at the same time.
Couldn't you make a lot of those arguments for this guy as well?
Exactly, and that's why I had a really tough time because it was between Broxah and Hylissang, between who I would put up next. Because I think they've both been super consistent and they've been really reliable. And it's only because, as Broxah says, we get to see what happens on stage. And so he makes more plays and he's worked with more carries than he has. So that's kind of why he edged above Broxah. But that's not to say that Broxah has not been fantastic.
So would you give Hilly the seal of approval?
Yeah, I would love seeing Hyli get MVP. I think in the end, most people are going to vote for Caps. That's kind of the obvious vote, right? But I think Hyli would deserve it as well. I think, as you mentioned, he has played with 2 different carriers. Suddenly he had to help teach a top laner how to play bot lane.
That's crazy.
He has played a bunch of different styles. Generally, he's kind of aggressive, right? But he has shown that he's able to play passive and aggressive. He has picked up a new roaming style, just leaving the AD carry behind and doing his own thing. And yeah, he has been really consistent. And I think he has 100% win rate on Pyke as well over 7 games or something. Like, his Pyke is
you should ban Pyke. You're playing against
Pyke is scary. I wouldn't want to play against him, that's for sure.
Before we move on, Nukeduck, we were talking about this before, and we were like, okay, well, how can you not put someone of Schalke in the MVP voting? But on the other hand, even if Nukeduck in the year of the duck and he's had some good performances, or he's always had good performances, but some that, are above or like really stand out, it's really hard to pick a standout player for Schalke.
It is.
What do you who would you give it to? Would it be Nukeduck or?
Well, the first 2 players that come to my mind are Upset and Nukeduck. I think generally looking at how Schalke plays, they tend to play most around Nukeduck, and he seems to be really valuable for them. I don't think there's many mid laners that you can put on Schalke right now and
Get the same result.
Get the same result, right? So as you mentioned, I think Nuke is really, really important for Schalke. I think Upset is as well, but at least from the outside perspective, Nuke seems a little more so because they just play so much around him.
Yeah, I think if you look at the split in entirety, Nuke has definitely been the stronger player. Upset, while he's looked really good the last couple of weeks, has been a little bit of a slower burn to actually get to that form.
Benny?
And for me, it's just been the fact that, especially having that conversation with Upset last night, the communication that Nuke provides to the team, but also just how consistent this guy has been throughout the entirety of the split, I think just makes him such a valuable addition to the team. And while the team has taken a while to ramp up, Nuke has always been one of the big performers. And they can now look to play through him or around him, but regardless, he always somehow has an impact on the team. And given their recent performance, given that they're like 8-1, 9-1 or something ridiculous right now, to me, he kind of has to be one of the candidates for MVP.
That's fair. He's also one of the only guys who can really point at his jersey. We have a lot of players that like point next to the jersey for some reason, like Hylissang and Caps, I believe. But yeah, also a cool Hylissang picture. I'm just looking at things that don't matter right now. I agree with a lot of your guys' picks, and it'll be really interesting to see who rises up in the next couple of weeks and snags that MVP. For now, though, we are going to check out some of the LCS big plays from this week, brought to you by Acer Predator. First up, Unicorns of Love's top laner White Knight tricked everyone against G2 yesterday. Zinedine Zidane might be the king of dribbling in football, or Eden Hazard, but White Knight, that was magnifique.
Storm made a rapid fire cannon for Sam.
And the rest of G2 is looking for the claps onto White Knight.
Hextech ultimatum used. White Knight trying to dodge away from this, but he's just going to get locked up, stunned down, and he will fall. The world ender's world has been ended. Looking for the flash across the wall here. Flashes. Oh, he got out! God, he's too good! Holy moly, White Knight!
Perkz is on the chase,
Perkz,
though.
don't do it. Let him get away. Mercy! Mercy, please, Perkz!
Get him out of there! Get him out! That is cheating! Come on, man!
Then we need to
just clear vision. Clear vision.
Yeah.
They're going me. TP. Go TP.
Look into clear. I don't think so.
It's not good fight.
Come
But
it. I'm looking behind. I'm looking behind.
okay, I take it.
Yeah, don't stop by time.
Round low, by the way, no flash. I'm okay. I need help. I'm moving. Moving as well. Akali here.
Can you cover me? I think looks hard.
I think you're dead. Yeah, I'm dead.
Mars Brown, no ultimate.
I bought some time.
We look for something.
I think you're dead. The saddest thing when you make such an outplay and your team is pushing mid is that nobody saw it.
Yeah, and why did they have to show the death? This play would have been insane if we just cut the clip after he got in the bush.
Never happened. Perkz never killed him. No, that was sick. Okay, next one. The reworked Akali is now available for the famous EU mids. And yesterday we saw some big performances as the rogue assassin left her mark on the opposition.
Relatively early on.
Another
Here
one!
comes the call of the Forge God. Ruin gets the knockback onto Caps, goes obscure though. Healing up with the Hextech ult, not Hextech, Gunblade, that's the one it was. Hylissang gets dived on though, he's down. Caps looking for the flank, jumps in, double micro stun into the Zhonya's. Ruin, the dodge away from Caps keeps him alive, but here come the curtains. Caps has to just dodge away from this if he can. One shot's gonna connect. Second does not. Joker can't.
There we go.
Dive in from Caps once again, straight into the shroud. And now Ruin's running for the hills because Whipper's on the chase. The Bellows read the double shut down. That's exactly what you need if you're Fnatic, but prepared for it with his life. Seal back. Goodbye once again. Steelback comes up, trumps.
Look, Akali's on flank, guys. We can go. I have a pink, by the way. Oh, they're checking it now.
Walk up. Zone them out here.
Yeah, I'm walking up too.
Look, they wanna fight me.
Yeah. I tried.
I can
go on side. Can we fight?
Rakan ulti. Go Rakan. We got Rakan.
Yeah. We killed Zaya too.
Go Darius is stuck. Go Darius.
I jump. You can get him upset. I left. Can we end? No, we cannot. We cannot. Can we go Nash and zone the Gragas? Yeah. We can turn as 3.
We're always talking about how, for an enemy, it's really annoying to play against Akali. But with the team, I assume you also have to be pretty coordinated since, you're just like in the shroud and then jumping in and jumping back. And how do you guys, does that make communication harder?
It makes it a bit tricky and confusing at times because at this point we all have a pretty good idea of what Akali can do, right? But Caps sometimes has some crazy ideas and he goes for some big plays. And sometimes he says, "Okay, guys, I'm going in," and we just follow him and hope for the best, right? Because sometimes he does some things or one-shots people in crazy ways where we're just mind blown, like none of us knew what happened. We just look at what he has done and we're like, whoa. It's a little weird playing for the first times with this type of champion that has such a high skill cap and can make so many outplays, but we're slowly getting there. I don't think
Okay,
we're
so
there
that
yet.
wasn't like the limit of the abilities. Nice. We'll track that. Final big play in our match of the week. G2 had the right picks to set up a wombo combo, and in the 27th minute, they saw their chance around Baron.
Turret will go down mid lane, but Jan, he's leaving. He's about to join the fight.
Yeah, Hylissang needs to be here. 4 on 5. Baron is being shredded and melted and destroyed with the double rage blade. Knockup! G2 Esports destroy Misfits. Sjokz picks up the Baron, but at the cost of his entire team. Hylissang and Sjokz are running for their lives. They find themselves on the wrong side of the rift, and G2 come a knocking. There goes Hylissang. Sjokz will find Jankos in a moment or two, and Misfits will be aced.
They do it really slow, and they have no ult on Ryze and Perkz. You have to go in. On engage by slowly. Just wait. Pourke. You can go now, maybe. You can go now. You can go now. Come over the wall.
I'm on Toronto. Toronto is dead. I'm on Ryze. I'll get a good Gnar.
They have no flashes. Come over.
No. Chase him.
I'm from base. Don't let anyone escape if possible.
Nice.
That no one escaped.
Let no one leave.
Woodid also got MVP off that, and Perkz afterwards said he didn't even knock up 5 people. He just knocked up 2, so it should have been me. There we go. I don't know if we agree with that. Let's check out what we've got in store for next Friday. We're almost wrapping up here in the LCS this week, but we've got a lot to look forward to, and I'm going to look at this in the context of the battle for the bye and first place. Splyce Schalke, nice one. Splyce is looking to go up in the standings. Schalke is looking for that #1 spot. What other matchups are we hyped about?
That one.
I cannot.
The one on the bottom.
Misfits versus Vitality.
Quick fire predictions.
Vitality.
Ooh.
Misfits, if they have Mickey X back.
Yeah, nice one.
I think Vitality.
Think Vitality. Okay, we will see. Over in the NA LCS, the action is starting with 100 Thieves versus Echo Fox. Be sure to stick around for that. You can just keep sitting because NA LCS Countdown is about to kick off. And then after all the NA LCS action, more EU LCS, but then in the rebroadcast, don't want to trick you, there's not more games. That will be it for this week. Broxah, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on the first spot so far. And my analysts, thank you as well. We'll be back next Friday for more action in the EU LCS. Have a great night.
Have fun in NA.
Yay.
Let's see how she does. Now Smitty J gets engaged.
It's taken out Smitty J. That is a very mini Gnar. Promiscuous is going to have to accept his fate. Tries to thick skin it up, but it's taken out. Attila grabs a kill as well. They want to get it out. I don't think they have enough. Cutting it down. It may not be clean. It may not be pretty. But a win is a win. Exile gonna flash. He brings it back. Ignite. One more tick. Is he gonna get him taken down? First blood for Memento.
Nice. Third. Good job.
But the tower is down and the dreams are dead. They do everything they can, but it is not enough.
It's in burst range. Who's gonna pick up the Baron? Spike fight. Verdict goes out. Vedius does it again for Schalke. 15 kills to 0. Schalke, no fear, take down the Nexus and are one step closer to that semi-final bye. Yeah, Hylissang needs to be here. 4 on 5. Baron is being shredded and melted and destroyed with the double rage blade. Knockup! G2 Esports destroy Misfits. Sjokz picks up the Baron, but at the cost of his entire team. And the mid lane is the target, but G2 are fully aware. Another 3-man knockup. Misfits are routed and wrecked. The Devour over the wall with the flash. Because Alfari stays alive for a few seconds longer. The Nexus is the focus. It is being hammered away by Hylissang, and G2 take down Misfits. He goes golden. He's done his stunned in the background. It's on a one and it's down. Kobe follows quickly thereafter. The 10% play to Fisher was talking about has happened.